8 years ago, I purchased this early Apple laptop for just $1. It's got a busted hinge, dead hard drive, and a screen that looks like Wolverine has attacked it. I never thought of the prospect of having this laptop working again, as it spent a number of years just sitting around as a display piece before eventually finding its way into a pile of vintage laptops I had stashed away. But it's time to bring it out again, and take the time to get it working. The screen has suffered from a common fault seen on early and aging flat panel displays, often referred to as vinegar syndrome, although I couldn't find any examples of displays failing as badly as this one. It's left a coarse texture to the panel that could almost pass as sandpaper, cracking and a yellow mark running around the edge that looks like heat damage. While this screen looks like a goner, believe it or not, we're actually going to repair the screen, not replace it. In 2018, I received this laptop with its original charger and even a copy of its receipt, dated the 12th of April 1995. This laptop costing $2,145 Australian dollars, with the specs listed as 4MB of RAM and a 120MB hard drive. It powers on without a chime, and an audible hard drive issue is heard. But there's nothing visible on the badly degraded display, although the brightness control is working, so at least something is happening behind all this damage. The first point of call is of course the display. If we can't fix it, there's no point to repairing anything else. Just 2 screws and some plastic clips are all that hold the front bezel in place, although the clips have already broken free. Without the bezel, you can see the hinge, and it's no surprise it's broken. The high tension hinge is secured using only 4 screws into brass standoffs set in brittle plastic. The plastic is broken and allowed the hinge to separate from the housing. 4 further screws secure the passive matrix display to the housing. Removing the display, we can see it was manufactured by Casio, the same company that makes watches and calculators. And you better believe this display has about the same black and white quality as you'd expect from a calculator. To begin the repair to the display, we first need to remove its metal bezel before beginning to separate the top layer, known as the polarizer. Even LCDs today still have this film. It's what I removed on my iPad mini to make the invisible display modification. This layer has broken down and began to crystallize. While it's made the display unusable in its current condition, it is fixable. This layer is applied over glass, meaning we can remove it with a blade, clean up the residue, and replace it. If we do all this without damaging the ribbon cables around the perimeter of the screen, we should end up with a working display. The reason I would recommend repairing the display over a replacement is a working replacement is also likely to fail if it hasn't done so already. This failure is more of a when it will happen more than a if it will happen kind of situation. My Toshiba Windows 98 laptop has also recently developed this issue, just out of the blue. Once a large corner is dislodged, it comes off quite easily. However, it leaves behind stubborn adhesive and a vinegar-like smell, hence where it gained the name vinegar syndrome. The removal of the adhesive is by far the most time-consuming process of the repair. Thankfully, the glass layer is quite thick on this display, so the risk of cracking it is greatly minimized. Using lots of isopropyl alcohol and scraping with a few blades, I could slowly remove the adhesive. Eventually using a plastic card to lift away large chunks. The composition of the adhesive is very corrosive, so much so it managed to corrode my new razor blade shortly after. We'll give the display a power on test, placing the new film in front of it to see if it's working. This film needs to be orientated the correct way, or the color can be shifted or inverted. However, whatever way I place the film, I'm not seeing anything. So before I can apply the new polarizer film, we need to make sure this laptop is actually booting, so this film can be orientated the correct way. With the display removed once again, I can flip the laptop over and remove the 3 screws from the base and 1 from the back next to the modem port before lifting up the top case. And immediately I can see a problem. Corrosion. Not from liquid damage, but from the deadly Vata battery used to keep the clock settings. It's long since dead and it's leaked, some of which has found its way onto the motherboard. Using some IPA, I can clean it up. Thankfully, it doesn't look too bad. However, where this Vata battery has done damage is to the traces on the Daughterboard, responsible for the keyboard, trackball, display, and speaker. This is likely the cause of our no image problem. You can visibly see how the battery acid has eaten away at the traces, even ones 100 mil away. I'll get the Daughterboard removed so we can take a look at the damage. There's a couple of screws and cables for the display, keyboard, and trackball. The first thing I'm going to do is clip off this battery to stop any further leakage. Then I'll try to neutralize the board and clean it with some isopropyl alcohol. By using a brush, it will expose any damaged traces, hopefully allowing me to fix them. I started with the speaker, after all that's the easy one, having just 2 wires to reconnect. I used some enamel wire to create a new connection. The enamel coating stops the wire from shorting out while still being really thin and possible to solder. A quick continuity test, and I could see the speaker was connected. Sure enough, the laptop chimes. That's a great start. But the more I tried to fix, the more damage I would uncover. Under the microscope, the damage was a lot more obvious. I repaired a number of traces, some of which were broken in several places by the acid. The process involved stripping back some of the solder mask, tinning the trace, and joining the break with a bit of enamel wire. Testing the continuity of each repaired link. There was a lot of damage, and while I thought I'd fixed all the damaged traces, the screen still didn't work. I think the battery acid had damaged just too many to make repair viable on this board. I tried my best, but it was just too far gone. So I purchased another. It's in a lot better shape, so I'd like to thank John from Roadkill Incorporated for sending over this part. He clipped the battery off prior to sending it. But it wasn't perfect. It still had a little bit of corrosion around the backlight connector. Thankfully though, nothing to the traces on the board. Below the plastic cover, you can see just how much damage the corrosion can do. I attempted to clean it from the underside of the top case, but it didn't really clean up all that well. Installing the new Daughterboard and my original backlight module, we could test out the system. This time, I could see a blinking question mark. A sign not only the computer was working, but the hard drive wasn't. Before we could attend to that, I want to get the polarizer installed. I don't have a large enough sheet to be able to install it diagonally, but having purchased a few sheets, I found one that appeared to be best when orientated portrait, which is perfect for what we need. I could finish off cleaning the display so that there was absolutely no adhesive left and it was ready for the polarizer to be installed. The premise of the installation is like that of a plastic screen protector, although it's a lot thicker and with a lot less room for error. I would have to cut the new polarizer down to size. I thought I'd be able to cut through it with a sharp blade, however that wasn't effective and I needed to use scissors to get the job done. I started in one corner before adhering the adjacent one. It's important that it's all square before we start applying, or we could end up trailing off to one side. I could then use a thick card to slowly apply the film. Unlike a screen protector, you can't backtrack and lift up the film once it makes contact with the screen. The adhesive is very strong, so you need to watch for air bubbles and squeeze them out as soon as you see them. If there's any dust or dirt left under the screen, it will cause a bubble that cannot be removed. This was my initial attempt, and I made it with only 3 or 4 tiny little bubbles, which occurred right at the beginning. I saw some examples online where people ended up with mostly bubbles, having to remove the film and start all over again. Some recommended just sitting the film on top and not even attempting to stick it down. Overall, the process is manageable, You just need to have a very clean display and go very slowly. After getting the outer bezel reinstalled to the display panel, it was time for another test. This time we can see the display is now working and displaying a visible image once again. The next point of call is the broken hinge. Thanks to This Does Not Compute, who also repaired a PowerBook 150, he created a set of replacement hinge supports. I'll get these printed in PETG and we can work on getting them installed. You can see on the display housing where each standoff once stood, but they've completely broken off while the last one is teetering on the edge of collapse. The remnants of those standoffs still remain attached to the hinge on the other half of the laptop. To install the new 3D printed supports, we need to clip off any remaining plastic that was responsible for securing the old standoffs, filing the surface down flat to accept the new piece. The outer bezel isn't without its own flaw. The backing flange is broken on one side. The kit also comes with replacements for these, so again I can cut and file away the old one. Each hinge piece is slightly different, so it's important to glue them in the correct side and orientation, with the left one having a large opening in the middle for the display cable, while the other has a gap on the right side for the backlight cable. Next, the bezel can have its new piece installed. I also discovered a few clips had broken around the bezel, so I could glue them back together too. The original brass standoffs can be unfastened from the hinge and heat pressed into the 3D printed brackets using a soldering iron. This was super easy and a great solution to a very common issue with these early PowerBooks. I can now start to reassemble the display assembly. The panel needs to be plugged in first before it's placed into the housing and screwed down. The assembly can then be situated behind the hinges and secured with 2 screws before the faceplate is attached. Its 2 screws are also attaching to the hinge, providing the screen with 4 total screws to hinge off. Have a look at that. It's opening and closing as it should. The last thing to take care of is the bad hard drive. This was the first Apple laptop to use IDE instead of SCSI. The old one comes out easily and can be replaced with a CF card in an IDE adapter. System 7 only supports drives up to 2 GB in size, so thankfully that's the smallest flash card I have. I recently bought a lot of them in various capacity for just $25. I reinstalled the hard drive bracket just in case it's ever needed again. Leaving parts outside the computer, they'll just get lost or thrown away. This way it's kept safely. I also found a few more cracked pieces of plastic to add some more glue to, including one of the standoffs for the Daughterboard we replaced earlier. A lot of the parts inside this laptop have Acer part numbers, because apparently Acer manufactured this model of PowerBook. Now the 2 halves can be reunited with the one interconnect cable, with the screws being reattached into the system. It's now time for a test. It powers up but has no operating system, so we're still getting a blinking question mark. I have a System 7.0.1 floppy for a Macintosh LC, which it happily detects, however it refuses to boot as it's too old. This laptop requires System 7.1.1 to 7.5.6. That's all the ranges supported. I tried to create my own bootable install floppy using Windows 98. However, either the one floppy disk I have doesn't work, or the drive in this laptop is broken, as no matter what I tried, it wouldn't read or reformat the disk. I tried cloning a macOS standard image to the CF card, but again, I couldn't get it to boot. These are notoriously difficult to install macOS on, because these are the first Apple laptops with an IDE interface. They require a special driver. I had purchased a blue SCSI drive emulator, which would have worked had this been a SCSI system. But with the lack of really any ports, you need install floppies to install the operating system. And the ones I have are a minor revision too early, so they won't let me continue with the installation. So as much as I would have liked to finish this video off with the System 7 install, that's just not going to happen. I'll have to source some floppy disks and get it installed, but for now, you'll just have to use your imagination. So this is it, a PowerBook 150. We've successfully repaired the display, hinge, and damage caused by the leaking battery. I never thought I'd ever see this laptop boot up. I wasn't able to find any matte polarizer films, so whether the matte layer is added on top as an additional layer to the polarizer, I'm not really sure, but the new polarizer gives the screen a glossy appearance which makes it look like a modern screen. But don't worry, the performance is still that of a passive matrix display. The best thing to say about it is that it has a frame rate. But that's the reality of early laptop displays. They weren't anywhere near the quality we have today. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffries video. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing and check out the Vintage Computer playlist for more videos just like this one. And if you're looking for any used devices, be sure to check out my online store, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.